Okay, welcome to Module 11 of ED 621C. You've completed your GRASPs, culminating performance tasks, and the rubrics for those GRASPs. We're staying in this module with the UBD unit in planning traditional test items for your lessons and for, stage 2 assessments. There are a few things going on in Module 11. There's a little bit of overlap between this module and Module 12 and this week and next week. So I will go over it here. And if you have any questions, of course, you're always welcome to contact me. Plan well, the dates vary. So for this week and Module 11, your traditional test item bank is due. Your self-evaluation checklist on those test items is also due. And your reflection on the test item development process is due on April 2nd. All those three things are for Module 11. And then in preparation for Module 12, where we're moving away from the UBD unit, we're moving into just looking at how we use test and assessment data to make decisions for students in work in content-based assessments as well as in standardized-based assessments. But here we're getting ready for the assessment of student work. And because it's a multi-stage process, we're starting it with a completion of the template, which you will submit by April 4th to the discussion forum. And the template will have along with it, steps 1 through 4, will have along with it examples of student work and especially the scoring data or criteria that is used for evaluating the student work. Then on April 5th, we're going to have our online meeting where you're going to meet with the assessing student work or analyzing student work with critical friends who will be assigned at that time. And you will be finishing up stage 5 and the next steps for your sample. And then the completed sample will be due on April 9th for Module 12. The objectives for Module 11 are to construct well-designed traditional test items that address your multidisciplinary unit, and also, and concurrently with Module 12, accurately analyze student data or work to effectively plan instruction and differentiation. Your tasks and products. You're to read, view, and apply the materials in the module, and then use the traditional test item bank to create 3 test items or sets for each item, traditional test item, each type of traditional test item, based on the material from this model. They need to be directly aligned with your unit objectives. You're going to have a peer or critical friend go over those test items with you. You can't really give them to a cat to give feedback, but you can have a friend look them over and see if they have any questions about them, if there are any things they need clarification on. Highly recommended. Then, please highlight in red and or add the test items in red to the appropriate UBD assessment section and the instruction sections, wherever they fit in the assessments and where they fit in your instruction on your UBD unit, because you'll be submitting that in Module 12 or at the end of this course with the assessments in it. Append the test item bank to your assessment portfolio document that hopefully you've been keeping. I haven't mentioned it in the last 2 units, but you want to have the GRASPs and the rubrics and the test item bank all on new fresh pages in your assessment portfolio. You're going to submit your test item bank along with your self-assessment checklist on the test items in the appropriate Dropbox by April 2nd. And submit your reflection on designing traditional test items by April 2nd to the discussion forum. For the following week, you will need to have you will have collected student work and the scoring criteria or test data and complete steps 1 through 4 on the ASW template. I'm sure you'll have questions. Please feel free to email me. I'll do my best to explain it a little bit in advance, but I certainly will. I did explain it at the very beginning on the orientation PowerPoint, so you can go back to the orientation PowerPoint and read that slide, because that has all your fine data on analyzing student work. You'll submit the student work scoring criteria, test data, and the analyzing assessing student work template with steps 1 through 4 completed only to the discussion forum by the 4th in preparation for our Tuesday meeting on the 5th. Because I'm going to do something a little bit different in this presentation, because we have 2 different things going on, and I want to cover the traditional test items, and then I'll come back to the material in Module 11 so that it's clear to you, I hope, what it is you're expected to do. So That is a canon in Ireland. Oh no, Scotland, I'm sorry. Okay, Module 11, designing traditional test items. Why is it important to develop traditional classroom assessments? It is because you will eventually need to plan, design, build, and evaluate tests that truly assess what you want students to learn. Remember, your professional eye, we were talking about looking at curriculum and developing curriculum and how you're going to evaluate not only what you design, but what other people design. Not every published curriculum you will encounter provides adequately designed or targeted assessments because you have students that aren't fitting. You're not going to be able to be teaching every single bit of material in a commercial curriculum. That's why you're developing your units, because this is stuff you will teach. Hopefully, you'll have an opportunity to do that. At best, tests provide opportunities for reflection and reteaching. That's our goal, at least for the content-based testing. At worst, they provide accountability for coverage, which is what we're trying to avoid, just like we tried to avoid the academic versus the performance, academic prompts versus the performance prompts. If you're designing your own curriculum, which you are, you will need some objective measures of how students are progressing with the content. You can't see that last line, but that is what it says. If you want to know what your students learned in relation to your learning targets, which are aligned with the standards, you must either create or select assessment items that will provide evidence of what students have learned. Poorly written or invalid test items will give you and your students poor information and make it hard to adjust instruction to meet students' real needs. So it's again an issue of coverage versus in-depth learning or related learning to what you're actually teaching. It also, and it doesn't say it in this particular place, but it will also affect your communication with students' parents or caregivers who have an invested interest in the growth, academic growth of their student. If you have meaningless data, they aren't going to know if their child has progressed or had success in what they're learning in school. And a perfect example of that was the AMP assessment that was designed poorly and administered even more poorly, and so came up with data that was unusable. Thousands and thousands of dollars wasted on a material. So that's the big picture of your tiny picture. You don't want to have to waste your time and spend your time ineffectively giving tests on coverage. You want to provide assessments on what you've taught and what students need to learn. And that shows you the relationship between learning goals, the learning activities where you're planning the instruction, and the assessments. And once you've determined whether or not the students have been successful, you move back toward the learning goals again. You readjust or you move on, depending on how students have performed. Important tips for building a test: plan before instruction. Before instruction. Should I say it again? Before instruction. Test maps are for individual tests with multiple types of items. Actually, yeah, you can call it that way. See page 210 in Taylor and Nolan. Some people really want to use multiple tests as a summative assessment. That's actually fine. That's what an assessment map does. But really, what you're making, you're doing the same thing. Assessment plans are the guides for the unit, quarter, and semester, etc. So you're making an assessment guide for the unit. And these are some of the pieces you're going to use for your unit. And even though you're not making a fancy Excel chart assessment map, you are putting in the assessments where they go into your UBD unit. And that is an assessment map. What you're doing is you're planning multiple types of items to get at different types of assessment and student progress, evidence of student progress. The assessments are based directly on the learning objectives and instruction. You choose the best types of assessments for those. Presentation is everything. Space, and there's a space there on purpose, and organization, level of language, and even font and style are important. Level of language being, is it more kindergarten for kindergarten students or high school for kindergarten students? For elementary students, 14 to 16 point font should be the smallest size you use when you're providing an assessment to them. They need to be able to read it. And for kinder and first grade, no smaller than 18 points. They need to have big print. They're just learning to read. Keep in mind the time you need to take the test, and you can't see the last sentence, but also keep the format the same for similar test items. Just depends on what you're asking the students to do. The types of test items you're going to be building are multiple choice items, short answer items, matching, true, false, and completion items. These are the 5 types of tests that you're going to be developing. When you write them, please do not stay at the knowledge and recall level. You want to use the higher level thinking language and verbs that you've been using for your objectives and the other assessments that you've created. So if you ask for a list or a spelling list, you're way down on the bottom of the list. Now maybe you need a spelling list, and that's fine. But a vocabulary list is going to require some comprehension of what the meaning of the words are in context. Another example, what is the difference between how many years did the Civil War last? 5. Oh boy, so that was not too hard to answer. I don't know how long it really lasted. That probably wasn't right. How did the Battle of Gettysburg affect the outcome of the Civil War? That's going to require some application of a wide range of information that they've learned over the course of time about the Civil War, pre and post. When you build tests, you think about why you're using the test you're using. And so this is a nice chart. It's actually a very handy chart that you can use to select the kind of test you want for the kind of knowledge you want students to demonstrate. So if you just want recognition or recall of facts, you can use multiple choice items, you can use short answer items, sentence completion, true, false, and matching. If you want demonstration of a component of a larger authentic performance, and notice it says component of a larger authentic performance like your grasps, you can include essay items, performance tasks, and short answer items, for example. So this gives you a way to look at the kind of assessment you're looking for. What do you want them to be able to do? Like multi-step applications of concepts, knowledge, and skills, culminating performance tests. That's what you just did in Module 9. So this just gives you an overview, and when you're building your tests, please keep in mind why you're asking for this type of assessment. Now we need to also take a look at differentiating assessments, and actually not so much differentiating, but providing accommodations and modifications. Fair isn't always equal, according to Rick Wormelli, and we need to address the skill levels and certain proficiency levels of students that either do not speak standard English or demonstrate some type of learning disability. For accommodations, most standardized assessments provide accommodations in assessment environment, directions, assistance, and other accommodations. Like assistance would be having a word-to-word dictionary. I will tell you now, and I want you to keep this in mind for Module 12, having a word-to-word dictionary is not the solution for ESL differentiation. Please remember that. Modifications for students with IEPs depends on what the students need, depends on their involvement with the different disabilities they may be experiencing. For students that require modified learning objectives and who need to be assessed in ways that show whether they have learned those objectives, there are alternative assessments and alternative ways to assess students. So if you are, in fact, providing assessments for special education students, what accommodations are you actually making? Accommodations don't generally affect the validity of the test scores, what they are assessing. The validity is what is being assessed. The reliability depends on how it's being administered. So assessments are also for providing feedback. They provide feedback to the students to help them improve their skills and so on, to the parents. And when you provide feedback, you want to stay focused on the criteria that students are being evaluated by. Correctly and kindly and firmly, clearly coached. Set goals based on learning. That's what the feedback is for. The data, the assessment data, in whatever form it is what you use to help them set their goals based on learning. And that's also what you use as a teacher to differentiate instruction. So having established criteria from which to provide feedback that the students are aware of prior helps you be firm but kind. Students are generally willing to correct and reassess work if you have data to support your conversation, and that they know what was being looked for in advance. Find success, correct, and reinforce success. Validity just has to do with about how the test represents what is being tested. Is it fair? Is it true? Does it match your method? And You may have different types of items, but they all assess that information in various ways. Reliability is how it's being administered. Is it consistent? Is it clear? Are there meaningful distinctions between levels of knowledge? Can another person rate it reliably the same as you? Is there a consistent level of generalization that is related to the content? A general rule, if you're going to use pre-published assessments instead of your own, always review the assessments provided by publishers to ensure that they really do meet your learning objectives and goals and will give you both you and the stakeholders meaningful information. And very often you'll find some will be useful to you and some won't. And that's just because of pacing and timing. A lot of it just has to do with that. Your tasks for this module are to create 3 test items for each type of traditional test item based on the material from this module. They need to be directly aligned with your unit objectives. Have a peer critical friend go over the test items, as I mentioned earlier, to give you feedback. It's really important to have people, because if they can't answer it for you, I even had James answer mine and see if he had any questions, because I wasn't sure I was being clear when I was developing my test questions. So you really just want to have somebody look them over for you. Complete the reflection on the traditional test items in the discussion or forum thread. And in preparation for the submission of your UBD unit with the assessments in it, the new assessments, highlight in red and add the test items in red to the appropriate assessment and lesson sections. Again, I'll repeat it. It'll probably be repeated yet again. Submit your test item bank along with your test item self-assessment checklist to the appropriate Dropbox by April 2nd, and submit your reflection to the discussion forum by April 2nd. So this is the Module 11 tasks. Now, in preparing for analyzing student work, you're going to use the template, the ASW template. You're going to collect student work along with scoring criteria or test data and complete steps 1 through 4 in an ASW template. So you do need a bank of students, or a batch of students, or a gaggle of students to get information on them. You want to submit the work, scoring criteria, test data, and your analyzing student work template to the discussion forum by Monday, April 4th in preparation for our Tuesday meeting. And when you do that, because of HIPAA rules, you need to redact names and school names. Names of students and school names. You can say student A, student B, or you can give them fake names, whatever you want to do, as long as they're not identifiable. And that's something that you need to be careful of. But we do need to have them, because you need that group of students to do what I'm going to be asking you to do. I'm going to go back to, that's still Scotland, our Module 11 content. So the screencast will be here. Here's the PowerPoint for the screencast. Here's a very nice PowerPoint on developing multiple choice tests. It's easy, it's simple. Another student developed it some time back. I think it's been refined a little bit. You'll find that very useful. Designing test questions. I want you definitely to pay attention to what, this is kind of like the chart I showed you, good for, what's true, false, good for, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. Tips for writing good, true, false, and they have one for matching, they have one for multiple choice, they have one for short answer, they have one for essay, which you're not writing, and you're not writing oral exams either. But in any case, this is a very handy document, similar to that the spreadsheet that I showed you earlier. Test item construction checklist is, okay. This is what you're going to use to evaluate your own tests. I'm actually going backwards here, so I'm going to just stop there for a minute, go to the test item template. Here's your template. You have multiple choice, 3 items, short answer, 3 items, matching items, sets of 3, because you're going to have obviously more than one, and I want to show you an example. True, false items, 3. Sentence completion items, 3. Closed passage items, 3. Are they aligned with your UBD objectives? Have you embedded the assessments into your unit? And are they in the lesson in your unit? Are they in the appropriate lesson and are in the appropriate assessment column? I didn't underline lesson there, but lesson should be underlined. So this is your template that you can fill in. It's a table, it's a Word table, just so you know the format. It should be pretty easy to work with. And then your test item checklist. If your item in multiple choice meets all these criteria, all you have to do is, I don't know if you have, oh, I don't think you can do it. You might have to do it by hand and scan it, or you can do it maybe at the end. Oh, that was weird. There, check mark. What I wanted to do was check mark here. There we go. Because that's it. This is a bullet. Just put a check mark if you've done it. You can change the font or the format so it looks bigger, like you can bold it, I think. Bold. Or I can make it even a bigger size so that I know. So I'd like to just be able to see it. So it is option V if you want to put a check mark. X is simple enough. And NA if it doesn't apply. Capital NA. So what you'll do is you'll check off option V for a check. Make sure it's big font. X or NA. I pushed option for that. Sorry about that. Caps. NA. That's really big. But sometimes you'll find that it doesn't apply to you because you don't have kindergarten students, for example. So you just have to read through. But you're going to evaluate each one of your test items using the checklist, and then the short answer items, and then the matching set items, and then the true-false items, and then the completion items. And submitting this, there is a rubric for this. Closed passage completion items. I read too fast. And then your technical checklist. This reflection will be submitted to discussion forum. That's where you'll submit that answer. I will not grade it if you submit it with your checklist. I will not grade it there. Okay. So then, here's an example. I'm trying to get through this pretty quick. Okay, so always have your topic because this is a different section of my lesson, of my unit. So these multiple choice items are going to go in the food pyramid section. These short answer items are going to go with the health problems and poor nutrition. The matching sets are going to go in the food groups and nutritional information section of my lessons, those lessons. And then you can see I have my matching sets. What's important to do with your matching is to make sure you include your answers. So you can have the answers attached, like this answers are here, the answers are here. This was too big to put the answers here, so they're all the way at the bottom of the document. I'll just show you where they are. Here they are, nutrition test answers. And here's for the completion quiz for the personal eating plan and food pyramid and USDA guidelines. Nutrition text for reading comprehension. Please notice these are sentence completion. That is what they are. These are passage completions, and this should actually, what happened there? That's why. I'll fix this so that when you pull it up, it will actually say that. Close passage completion items. These are from a text, even if it's a small text. It's from a text. It's not just a sentence. It needs to be a minimum of 2 sentences just to make it a passage. It has to be a paragraph or close to a paragraph. I put little numbers here. You don't have to put numbers there. And then you always have your possible answers, because when you're grading, you want those answers there. You don't want to have to guess, did they get right? Are they in the range? No, you have your answers. If something really does seem reasonable and you didn't have it on there, okay, make note. So, and I went from simple to complex. If you notice on the matching, I went simple. Well, this would be for little guys. This would be older students. Pictures are always good. The thing you want to remember about these, and I'll just tell you again, is that you always want to have one extra answer. Don't have exactly the same number of answers. You always want to have one extra answer, because that way they aren't just guessing. They may guess anyway, but it's trying to avoid getting the last answer right just because. They still have to think about what they're answering in the matching sets and the matching items. You always want your directions. Please make sure to include, there are directions here. You can't hardly read them. But include the directions to each of your assessments, at least with the matching. Okay. I hope this is clear. If it's not, I know you will let me know. I'll fix it. Now for analyzing student work, read the directions on the ASW template. This is now our next section. Prepare steps 1 through 4. Here's the analyzing student work template. Now this template does have a few formatting issues. This is what you'll need. These are the directions. Here's step 1, here's step 2. You can fill this in. These are just tables. You should be able to fill them in. Step 3 and step 4. What are they, you say? Okay, step 1 is assessing and identifying proficiency. First, you're going to sort your students out. That's step 2. What are the students expected to do? What are the standards you're meeting? And this is all the criteria that you have set up at the beginning, along with the student work. Identifying strengths and needs. Then you do the quick sort, low, expected, and high. You put your lists here with their fake names. And then you choose 2 students per level, and what did they bring that they already knew that helped them do it as far as they got? Because the ones are low didn't have as much. And then step 4, what did they not have that they needed? And you'll have more here, more likely than you'll have over in the high. And then step 5 and next steps you will be doing next week in our meeting with a critical friend. So that's your template. And then an example of a assessing student work template. I'm not going to, actually, it's going to pull up now. You can look at it on your own. Your test item bank and checklist is here. This is your Module 11 material. This is where you're going to submit it. Prior to submission, remember to self-assess by April 2nd. Here you're getting this in by Monday, April 4th, and you're submitting it to the discussion forum. So that's it. This is a little longer than I'd hoped, but I know that I had to cover a little bit of extra material. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glad to answer any you have. And I'm looking forward to your test items. It's fun. It's kind of like doing an Excel spreadsheet for your budget. Maybe that's not so fun for some of you. It's attention demanding, sort of detail-oriented work. So enjoy it. Don't let it overwhelm you. It will be worth it in the end. Have a good week. And I'll see you in Module 12.